All right, Josh Johnson here. We are going to get this party started momentarily with all sorts of discussion and conversation about the ongoing storm setup here in the state of Alabama. There are issues, as you well know. We had some damage down in the Mobile area this morning. Things have improved considerably, though, since then. And quite frankly, I think overall our prospects for the rest of the day are looking better than they did even just an hour or two ago. Things are trending in the right direction. So, no further ado, we will climb on in and get this party started. Again, if you're new to these, I'm Josh Johnson. We track storms quite a bit around these parts. I'm the chief meteorologist at WSFA 12 News out of Montgomery, Alabama. But this is just kind of a casual conversation amongst mainly friends, with some exceptions. Occasionally we get a bonehead or two in here, but we usually set them straight pretty quick or just ban them and move on about our lives. So the story is this. Again, as I've mentioned, overall things are better than they could have been. The reason for that, quite frankly, is because the line of storms this morning held together longer than expected and moved farther east than expected. The Storm Prediction Center actually referenced that in their outlook this morning, that this thing had really held together quite well, and that's not bad news for us. So here is planet Earth, specifically our home. Right down here, most of you are somewhere right in here. Big, sprawling storm system, moisture streaming in out of the Gulf out ahead of it. That's what we're looking at this morning. Here is radar. We do have some issues on radar. Notice coastal portions of Alabama. We have some severe thunderstorm warnings down here in parts of Baldwin County, and some special weather statements for offshore storms. Pretty rough stuff down here. Robertsdale, back over to Summerdale and Foley, Alberta, and then back into southern Mobile County, raining torrentially out of Bayou La Battery and Dauphin Island, back along the Mississippi coast. This is part of a larger complex of storms down here along the coast that is going to slowly translate east-northeast over the next few hours. Now, some of this could potentially end up getting into parts of perhaps Covington and the Wiregrass as the morning unfolds. Most of it stays in Florida. And overall, for central Alabama, when we see a big line of storms right along the immediate coast, that usually is good news for us. Usually that helps stop the flow of warm, muggy air in off the Gulf of Mexico, and life gets better for us. But we'll see if that is how this translates this go round. We're watching that line of storms down there. So, by the way, is the Storm Prediction Center. So this is their latest mesoscale discussion. You see it here. Supercellular 2 could bring wind, hail, tornadoes to parts of far southeast Louisiana into the Florida Panhandle for a brief period over the next 1 to 2 hours. They issued that at 9:49, so 19 minutes ago. You'll notice they've circled mainly Louisiana, Mississippi, coastal Alabama, and the Panhandle, but they did draw this up into the southeastern corner of the state just in case. So that's the kind of thing one we're looking at here. This first more pressing issue, the storms that are ongoing now. So far we have no active tornado warnings as of this moment. We had some earlier in the day. We had some fairly substantial damage down around Mobile. A Family Dollar store and some houses near it were hit pretty hard down there. So that's all moved out. Now we have this line of storms along the coast. Now the million-dollar question here is what happens next. And as always, models are great, but when you get into a real-life situation, the best way to kind of solve the riddle here is to use real-life data. So we will do that. Let me show you this. This is satellite data. Couple of things to point out here. You're looking at Alabama, and if you look just above my head here, see this right here, this little thin white line. That is a little mesoscale boundary is what we call that. It's just a small scale temperature moisture boundary. Usually west of that, it's a little drier and cooler. East of that, it's a little warmer and muggier. So as this moves east, there's a window here across central Alabama where we could see new storms begin to fire. If that were to happen, the atmosphere is structured in the kind of way today where it could produce isolated pockets of large hail, isolated pockets of damaging wind. And if you had the wrong storm in the wrong place at the wrong time, you could spin up a brief tornado. It would take a series of unlikely events for that to occur, but it's not impossible. So if you live in Alabama today, moral of the story, you need multiple reliable ways of getting those weather warnings. So if you're just joining us, the recap here is morning storms moved through, held together longer than expected. That rain helped to stabilize the atmosphere. Now, as we move through the rest of the day, there's enough sun and enough energy to where we will likely see a new pop-up area of storms get going later on in the day. And the more intense cores within that could potentially produce primarily a risk of large hail and damaging wind, but I suppose we also can't rule out a brief tornado. So as always, we just say it a lot, but it works every day, multiple reliable ways of getting weather warnings. Perfect combination is the app and the weather radio. The weather radio is exceptionally reliable. The system downtime on weather radio is like 0.001%. It's crazy. The app will provide you details. So weather radio, reliable, app, details, combine the two, and you've got a winning severe weather safety combination there. So here's our map. And really, quite frankly, this is the Storm Prediction Center's map. They have kind of trimmed back the level 3 risk here over into far east Alabama. And I think that's probably the right idea here in this sort of setup. Let me walk you through this too. This is the high-res rapid refresh model, and this is the most recent run of it. If you look up there at the top of the screen, you can see the time. So you've got, let's see here, trying to get the comments so that I can try to be answering some questions if I can be so brave. Lord help us all, right? Lots of questions, or lots of comments anyway. Storms to the south killing the inflow? Yeah, pretty much, they are. So, okay, so this is the high-res rapid refresh model. And yeah, I get the ads are blocking part of the map. So what I will do is simply take them down. Or I can move the map. We got options, right? So here's the whole state. So this is valid at 10 a.m., essentially right now. Now notice here a couple of things. The computer model doesn't see all of the storms that are actually happening down here. The computer model thinks Baldwin County's dry right now. We know from hard data here it is not. It's raining cats and dogs in Baldwin County. So the model, quite frankly, is already a little off in that respect. That's not unusual. We're trained to see that and kind of adjust for that. So here's 11, here's noon, here's 1, and that's what you see. You get this little cluster of pop-up showers and storms that tends to favor areas east of I-65 that should form sometime between noon and 2. It will then move east into the afternoon hours. Here's 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, it's mainly gone. 4 o'clock, it's totally gone. And then you get a little, along the actual front, a little redevelopment down in the Wiregrass around 6, 7, but by then the wind shear is gone and you're starting to lose the daytime heating, so I don't really think that's a huge deal. That's just kind of something that's out there. So that's the briefing part of this, and if you're new to these, the way that I like to do them is kind of run through everything and then dive into the questions. Ideally, we will have already answered some questions, but if not, now's the time to ask them. Let us know. Let me know. Fire away. We'll go through these. And if you're wondering what I'm looking at, I have the comments right here. So if you see me glancing down off camera, there's nothing super secret or also happening right there. It's just one of those things. Okay, what time are the storms supposed to hit? Gosh, that's an impossible question to answer, Austin, because the storms are going to form in random places. So the answers, now through 2 o'clock is the highest risk of storms, but they'll be scattered. And let me just scream this from the mountaintops. There are going to be a lot of you today that don't even get rain. This isn't one long line of storms that we can track and tell you it's going to be there between 1 and 2 p.m. This is not that. These are these pop-up kind of Swiss cheese style thunderstorms. There's really no ability to tell you it will rain in Brundage at 1:46 p.m. So, wish I could help more with that. We need a chopper to get in the air like Oklahoma City has. That's my buddy Doug. Hey, Doug. Yeah. Good luck with that around here. You know, our storms are different than theirs. The bases of their storms are up higher, which allows helicopter pilots to typically safely operate in that lowest couple of thousand feet. Relatively speaking, as safely as you can operate a helicopter on a stormy day. The issue we have here is our storms are typically very low, so there's low ceilings, and you get into some big trouble with that. If you're a helicopter pilot, that's you do not like to fly around when you can't see things. And we have sadly a long line of tragedies that have happened in this country with helicopters and poor low-level visibility. The Kobe Bryant thing, that's what that was. That's why they crashed. That was weather related. So, do you know how much a chopper would cost the network? I don't know, but it'd be a lot, wouldn't it? I have not priced a chopper lately. Probably an arm and a leg. Will it get as bad as it did earlier this morning for Florala? It could. There will probably be some more storms that pop later today. They will be scattered, though. It's not going to rain for everyone. Some of you, it's cloudy for parts of the rest of the day. The sun pops out and life's good. It doesn't even rain. So this is not a one-size-fits-all forecast. Look, I live in a mobile home in Opelika. Do I need to go ahead and leave since storms will be at random times? Paige, no, you don't. Stay weather aware. Stay on your toes. I would not leave a mobile home at this point. Now, if you go under a tornado watch, maybe you rethink that. If you go under a tornado warning, you've got to leave. So if you live in a mobile home and you're watching this, as of right now, you don't need to leave. If a tornado watch gets issued, you should consider leaving. If a tornado warning is issued, you must leave. Hopefully that can simplify it a bit. I'm in Brantley and I'm going to travel to Vida Junction. What do you think regarding travel and weather? Scattered storms. Again, there is no skill in predicting exactly where these things are going to pop. The best we can really do is hang out on radar and just sort of wait on them to go. So what I'll do is take you over to radar. I'll clear the telestration layer off here. Zoom you back out. So this is the Mobile radar because we were showing you all these storms down here along the immediate coast. And there's that. See these right here? So some showers beginning to form already along that boundary. Remember when I showed you the satellite data, you could sort of see that thin white line advancing through parts of West Alabama, then another one down to the south. There's a lot of them draped across the state today. Those are going to be what kind of aids thunderstorm development. So I would anticipate scattered storms would be most likely sort of in this part of the state here over the next couple of hours. So we'll say the next 1 to 4 hours. So essentially now through 2 o'clock, that little box is really where you kind of have the maximum level of storm probabilities. You're most likely to get a quick storm there. All right, so there you have that. Loading up more comments here and questions and all of that. What about Auburn? What about Millbrook? What about Montgomery? We don't know is the answer. These will be scattered storms. There is no skill in predicting exactly when they will be over a certain spot or even if they will be. And that's why the what about questions about specific locations, they're not answerable questions. I know everyone wants those answers. They're not answerable questions. When do you believe will be a peak time if you had to make an educated guess? Again, for who? A peak time for who? A peak time for the person who doesn't get any rain at all? Or a peak time for a location that we don't have any way of determining could get a storm later in the day? The highest chance of scattered intense storms is now through 2 o'clock. That's really about all I can give you. I think about 30%, 40% of our area gets those intense storms. Most of us don't. So specific town questions, specific time questions, I wish I could give you an answer. There are days that we can, when the situation is different, the circumstances are different, but in a pattern like this, it's not really feasible to pull off that kind of answer with any kind of actual science or reality. How many Sunkist do you have planned for today? None, actually. I've got my cup already with a Diet Coke from McDonald's in it. And then I bought this yesterday. I actually bought this accidentally. I was buying a Diet Mountain Dew, and it rang up twice. And I was kind of in a hurry to leave, so I just said, well, how about I just get 2 Diet Mountain Dews? Would that work? And the kind lady at the store said, sure, yeah, that'll work. So I said, okay. So I grabbed my second Diet Mountain Dew and hit the road. How bad will Montgomery get? We don't know. What about Millbrook? We don't know. Do you think it will be a PDS situation? No. This will definitely not be a PDS situation. Finally, a solid question that can be answered. Thomas Leichmeyer, a peak time for who? Yeah, it's tricky. These scattered storm setups are tough because here's the deal. Here's a good way to maybe think of this. For 5 to 10% of us today, you'll have heavy rain, thunder, lightning, golf ball size hail, 60 mile per hour winds. Maybe 5%, maybe less than that. Probably 1 to 2%. Let's do that. 1 to 2% of us will have really bad weather. 30 to 40% of us will have some rain, and that's it. 50-ish% of us, it doesn't even rain the rest of the day. It's gone. And the part of my job that sucks on a day like today is there is no scientific ability to tell you which category you are in until the storms actually form. Now, once the storms form, we track them. We say, if you live here, 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 it's coming. This is what you need to expect. But until they form, it would be like getting blindfolded and throwing darts at a board. And I really try hard to level with you guys all the time. And that's, if we don't know, if I don't know, I say I don't know. And I guess that's one thing. I've done this 20 years now, and I've been burned enough times to just say, yeah, we don't know. Humility, man. It's a missing art. All right. How many games will Auburn lose this year? Jeff, what do you think? Say what? Jeff says I'm not touching that one. What was that about? I just said about having the humility to say I don't know. That's my answer. I don't know. I will, but because I like you guys, and you were kind enough to ask a funny question, which I appreciate. Let's look at their schedule. I think, that's always the challenging part. I will say this about Auburn. I think Auburn was probably better last year than their schedule indicated. They lost a bunch of close games. And typically over time, those touchdown or less games end up being about 50-50. Last year, most of them went against Auburn. Okay, so let's look at the schedule. They play Mercer. No offense to Mercer, that's a win. San Jose State's a win. Penn State, it's in Auburn. We'll say win. Missouri's a win. LSU at home, probably a loss. At Georgia's probably a loss. At Ole Miss, I'll say loss. Arkansas at home, win. At Mississippi State, I'm going to say a win. So that's 6 wins. Texas A&M's is probably a loss. Western Kentucky's probably a win. So 7 or 8 games, I think they get 8-4 with that schedule. You look at Alabama and at Georgia, and you say, okay, Auburn will be decided underdogs in both of those games, right? I mean, those two teams played for the national championship last year, and they both recruited at a very high level. The wild card games, to me, you've got the trip to Starkville, the trip to Ole Miss. Both of those teams, iffy. Mississippi State has a returning quarterback, lost a lot defensively. Plus, it's Mike Leach. I'm a Mississippi State alum, and I'll be first to tell you, with a Mike Leach team, who knows what you get. At Ole Miss, tricky. They lost Matt Corral, but they have some transfers coming in, some young players at quarterback that could be pretty dangerous. So you figure at Georgia, at Bama are losses, and then out of Arkansas, A&M, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and Penn State, I think they've got to win maybe 3 of those games. You could lose 2, but if you win the other 3, you probably get to 8. So, good question. What about slap out? I knew it would happen. I'm proud of that, guys. I think that's awesome. I love the slap out thing. I'm here for it. So, most of this probably goes by slap out without a lot of fanfare. Have you tried Huey Magoo's? Not yet. No, I have not. I've heard it's good, though. The issue with Huey Magoo's is my wife is a huge fan of Salsaritas, which is next door to Huey Magoo's. So if we're going out that far, decent chance we're going to make Mama happy and go to Salsaritas, which is fine. I like them both. PDF situation, no. Can you do a quick recap for those that just joined? Sure. So the current situation is this. A line of thunderstorms moved through this morning. It lasted longer than anyone expected. That rain from this morning has stabilized the atmosphere and cooled the atmosphere over the state of Alabama. Still, there's enough juice left as a new boundary sweeps through the state over the next 3 to 4 hours. We will probably see some isolated areas of storm development. The most intense cores within those scattered storms could produce pockets of damaging wind and large hail. I can't rule out a random tornado forming if the wrong storm gets in the wrong place at the wrong time. The odds are low, but they're not zero. The highest chance of that would be along and east of Interstate 65. For 1 to 2% of us, the weather could get rough later today with all those things we talked about. For 30 to 40% of us, it'll just rain hard with some thunder and lightning. For the other 50-ish percent of us, 60% of us, it doesn't even rain. So that's the troubling and tricky part of this forecast is we aren't able to tell you ahead of time exactly where these cells are going to pop up. So it ends up being where we can talk about coverage, we can talk about the intensity, but as far as what will happen where you live, we can't give you an answer on that until the storm forms. Now, once it does, we see it on radar, we'll post social media, we'll post video updates on the app. If it's life-threatening, we'll go on WSFA TV and we'll track that thing like address by address across the state. But until that happens, till it forms, no one knows where it'll pop up. All of this is done by 4 o'clock. After 4 o'clock, the risk of severe weather ends. What is worse for tornadoes? This is a question from Jamie. A flat, empty field or hills with lots of trees, does that matter when a tornado forms? Not a ton. Doesn't really matter a whole lot. The surface cover of the earth. Is it a flat, empty field or hills with lots of trees? If it's hills with lots of trees, honestly, yeah, it doesn't matter. Is the main takeaway there? You can get off into the weeds here with a big, long discussion. It doesn't really, from a preparation perspective, it doesn't matter. You live on top of a hill, bottom of a hill, flat open field. I have seen houses get destroyed by tornadoes in all 3. And I will say this, too. There is nothing about the terrain in the state of Alabama that will protect you from a tornado. A lot of people think there is. There isn't. Hills, lakes, rivers, mountains. I have seen terrible tornado damage on top of mountains, in bottoms of valleys and pastures, lakes, rivers. They all get hit. So that's a myth, that there's anything terrain-wise in Alabama that will protect you from a tornado. It's not so. That's not correct. Predicted damaging storms like Torcon 1 out of 10, 10 being worse. Gosh, that would just be a made-up number, wouldn't it? But I'll play along 2 or 3. Some people want the darts and to complain afterwards. Sean says, so future view is not accurate right now? LOL. Here's a kind of totally honest moment about computer models. You have to think about computer models like ideas. That's all they are. They're ideas. It's a computer's idea of what may happen. On a day with thunderstorms, every model is going to be wrong about something. Exactly where the storms are, exactly when the storms are in that spot, exactly how severe they are. No computer model in my lifetime, in my opinion, will ever be able to nail that down exactly with 100% confidence. So every model is wrong. But some models are useful. Just because they're wrong doesn't mean they're not useful. We use them. We know their weaknesses. We know their strengths. We know their biases. So we're able to look at that data and interpret it and say, okay, well, here's the forecast. So a little insight about models, ideas. Think of them as ideas. And you know about ideas. Next time you're on Facebook, you see a post that has a bunch of comments, click the comments, read the comments. You will quickly learn that ideas are like belly buttons. Everyone has them. Some of them smell funny. Sean Brown says, Chris Holcomb said you used to work in Georgia as a meteorologist. I didn't know that. I lived in Montgomery most of my life, but moved to Plainville, Georgia 3 years ago. I did. Yeah, I worked with Chris. Chris is one of the nicest guys I've ever worked with. Smart meteorologist, kind man, nice man, good guy. All right, we pumped a severe thunderstorm watch in the last few moments here. That is down in far south Alabama. It's along the state line, essentially. I'll pull that up and show it to you. There you go. There's the severe thunderstorm watch. So this would include Mobile, Baldwin, Escambia, Covington, Geneva, and Houston. So pretty simple here. If your county touches the state of Florida, you are in a severe thunderstorm watch. You'll notice on the graphic here, the tornado risk is low. EF2 risk is very low. Severe wind risk is moderate. Severe hail, 2-inch hail, both in the moderate range. So there you have it. New severe thunderstorm watch. That's it right there. Just leave that up on the screen for you while we chat. Yeah, I worked with Chris for a while. Chris, great guy. Great guy. Great family. It was a really fantastic thing to get to work with him. Jamie says, I've always wondered if topography mattered in formation. For example, it's easier for a tornado to form on empty land as opposed to hills with trees. Again, not going too deep into science, it probably is slightly easier. There's less friction. But at the end of the day, they're certainly capable of forming just about anywhere they want to form. So there's some research being done about that too up around Sand Mountain up in northeast Alabama. But where we live in the southern half of the state, what I don't want is for anyone to say, well, I live on top of a hill, I don't have to worry about tornadoes. I have seen big, beautiful, well-built homes on top of hills get vaporized by tornadoes in this state. So please don't read more into that than there is. Topography will not protect you from tornadoes. Your decision-making will. James says, I was called out of work and now we're so disappointed. I work outdoors doing landscaping. Yeah, I mean, honestly, if the boss, maybe the boss is watching this, I would get back in there, go back to work, if it's at all possible. These storms later today will be scattered, especially if you're around Montgomery. If you're west of Montgomery, there are even less of them. So, I mean, personally, if I ran a landscaping business, I would get on the horn, call my people, and we would go out and do some work over the next couple of hours. Thank you, Josh. So the storms on the coast help us. Yes, I think they do. They help keep the... First off, thunderstorms throw out cool air essentially in every direction, out behind them, ahead of them. There are areas of cool air that come out from thunderstorms. That helps. Second thing is, in this instance, these storms almost act like a blockade. So they're along the coast. Warm, muggy air is over the Gulf. It's trying to get pulled northward. Oh, there's these giant thunderstorms in the way. These giant walls of water, 30,000 feet tall. It's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive blockade. So it does help. Tell Amanda the Patriots suck. I am not telling her that. She heard it though. She's in the back there. She says that's rude. So yeah, there's really not a lot of ability to, on a day like today, to give you precise timing. Certainly the way this is played out, where you had the morning line overachieve, now the afternoon is, do new storms pop? We don't know. If they do pop, where do they pop? We don't know. What we do know is there is a chance that more storms will fire. If they do form, they would tend to be more severe east of I-65 versus west, and they would tend to develop at some point between now and about 4 o'clock. That's literally the extent of what we know about this whole situation. So when you ask, what about Slap Out, what about Dadeville, what about Notasulga, that's a question that's impossible to answer. I'm telling you everything that we know. And if we don't know, I say that too. Is it true that tornadoes hop bodies of water? No. No, no, no. If you take anything from our conversation today, please let it be that. Tornadoes do not hop bodies of water. There's a whole lot of people who had to rebuild their house up on Lake Martin who will tell you all about tornadoes do not hop water. They plow right through it. So living near water does not protect you from tornadoes. Living on top of a hill does not protect you from tornadoes. Do you know what protects you from tornadoes? The decisions that you make. I don't protect you from tornadoes. Amanda doesn't protect you from tornadoes. We don't. We give you information, you make decisions, you take action. So we are one part of a 3-part process. We provide you with the information. From there, you have to process the information and make a decision, and then you have to actually physically take action. So it's a 3-step thing here. But no, they don't skip water. If you live in a big cave under a mountain, actually it says if you love in a big cave under a mountain, then you won't have to worry about one. Who are you loving in that big cave, Sean?
That's kind of what I was thinking.
This Facebook Live is getting fired up. So it's obviously a typo. If you live in a big cave under a mountain, then you won't have to worry about one. You're correct, you won't. I don't know how many people in Alabama live in a big cave under a mountain. I would suspect in our part of the state the number is 0. But yeah, you're fair enough. Amanda says, I live on Lake Jordan, and all the folks who have lived there forever say we're safe because of the water. Never fully believe that. Good. You should not believe that. That is bogus. Again, go over to Lake Martin and talk to people at Windermere and at Children's Harbor and at Paces Point and ask them about this. When I first moved here in 2008, people argued with me about the same thing at Lake Martin. And then a giant EF4 tornado hit dead center right through the middle of the lake and destroyed millions of dollars worth of property and killed people. Being near a lake does not protect you from a tornado. I can't say it any more plainly than that. And that's not my opinion. That is a scientific fact. I know a lot of you have heard the opposite of that for parts of your life. And I'm sorry that you've been told that. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but living near a lake is not going to help you, not 1%. So the Weather Channel app says our highest chance of rain in Daleville is 22%. I'd bet the over on that in Daleville, personally. Yeah, the Weather Channel app, that rain percentage is straight from a computer model. If the model's good, the forecast is good. If the model's not good, the forecast is terrible. Looking at radar, I'd go over that. But as we've mentioned, there are going to be places today where it doesn't rain. Montgomery may be one of them. I think that with every passing minute, the odds of it even raining in Montgomery seem to shrink a bit. Just with the way these things work out. It's the way it goes sometimes. What are the chances for damaging hail in East Montgomery? I would say they're very low. Jamie, I got another question. When it says chance of rain, X percent, how do we read that percentage? You guys do it too. Is it viewing area, state, town, etc.? We use it as a coverage for our viewing area, roughly the southern half of Alabama. What percentage of that is going to get rain? And that's the issue. If you had a line of showers, sprinkles, so say it rains very lightly for 10 minutes, but it's one solid line and it moves across the whole area. Technically, the rain chance that we would use in a forecast that day would be 100%. Even if it just rained for 10 minutes, very lightly. So, but a lot of people, there's a psychological part of this too. If we use a 90 or 100%, people expect it to rain most of the day. That's not always the case. We try to skew the percentages sometimes to account for that, but it's really difficult. So it's a coverage thing. Is the way that we use those. The weatherman said the same thing. Storms down along the Gulf helps. Okay.
Like you, the weatherman, or another?
Yeah, I don't know. Like me, the weatherman, or a different weatherman, or who you got there, Neil? Neil the Thrill. Does that time frame apply for everyone? Is it still able to be broken down? NWS said Central Alabama-ish threat will only go into 11. I think that's about right. Yeah. For Central Alabama, middle of the state, about 11. And again, with every passing moment, the chance of any redevelopment affecting us here in Montgomery goes down. And I think by 11 to noon, we could probably say, no, it's not going to happen here. So this is the high-res rapid refresh model. I've shown you this once already. Let me pop this thing up for you. There you go. And we got some sponsor logos up, so I'm going to take those off. And then I'm going to go get ready because we've got Alabama Live coming up in about 15 minutes. Meteorologist Amanda Kurt and I will handle that. So here's 10, here's 11, here's noon, here's 1. So I suspect we could probably say this, that the chance of severe weather is mainly south of 85, east of 65, and exists roughly now through 4 o'clock. North of I-85 and east of 65, there could be some storms. They would be a lot more isolated in nature. West of I-65, I really think this thing's probably done. So there you have that. A few more questions and then gots to go. I have enjoyed my WSFA Weather TED Talk this morning. Hey, always happy to help. The weatherman in Georgia said the same thing, that storms along the Gulf help us out. They do, yep.
Good weatherman you got there.
Mm-hmm. Sean says, LOL, I knew you were going to point out my typo. Sean, how could I not? It said loving in a cave.
Yeah, who you loving in a cave, bro?
Yeah, I mean, that's a...
I mean, to each their own if that's what you want to do.
It's kind of fun. I mean, it was funny. If I had made this same typo, I would say same. Okay, update. This is just in. National Weather Service, Birmingham. Convection along the coast is cutting us off from the best instability, and the boundary we've been watching is quickly pushing eastward across the area. Due to these factors, we have trimmed the risk areas even further. Woo! We held on to the enhanced for areas south of I-85, where the best potential for development is located, and also for the possibility of convection moving into this area from the south. So essentially, the Weather Service in Birmingham, who I have massive respect for, they do a fantastic job. They said everything that I've just spent the last hour kind of talking to you about. Storms along the coast could clip the far southern counties. As the boundary moves east, new storms could fire. Best chance is south of 85, east of 65. Even there, it's mainly just a hell wind setup. Tornado risk is low. Amanda says, I need that in writing for all my neighbors, Josh. My neighbors call me a worry ward, but I'm a safe worry ward. Well, I mean, I don't want anyone to be spooked, scared, or afraid of the weather, but you do need to have a an accurate knowledge of the situation. And Lake Jordan is not going to protect you from a tornado. It is not. It is not. So, yeah.
Here you go.
Oh, thank you.
They're not on though.
I was on Panama City Beach when a tornado came off the Gulf and hit the motel and cars. Yeah, if the Gulf of Mexico doesn't stop it, Lake Jordan probably won't either. Just joining in, we expecting more bad weather today. What about Wetumpka? You guys still talk to Eric and Vernon? I know they left Alabama a while back. I need to. I try to drop them a line every now and then, but it's been a while. So I will jump on that soon. Graduation at Auburn tonight at 5. Will storms be gone? Yes, they will. All right, so I'm going to go get ready to do Alabama Live. It is our 11 a.m. newscast. As always, I appreciate you hanging out. It's always fun to spend some time with everybody, talk about loving in a cave. You just never know what we'll get into on our chat. So I appreciate you for jumping on here with us. If you learned anything from all this, I want it to be that there's nothing in the topography of Alabama that protects you from tornadoes. The only thing that protects you from tornadoes are the decisions and actions that you make. That's it. Period. So you are your own best defense against tornadoes. But pay attention, know ahead of time where you'll go. Pick out that safe spot in your home. If you live in a mobile home, know ahead of time where you will leave the mobile home to go to. Do those things, have multiple reliable ways of getting weather warnings. You'll be fine. Whether the risk is here or here, you'll be fine. All right, everybody, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much, as always. And hope you all have a wonderful afternoon and evening, and a happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Hopefully everyone can spoil mom or the mom in your life, either way. So everyone have a wonderful day.